What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be reviewing Mock Draft 2.0 from Cynthia Frelund and continuing it for a second round. So if you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. We just reached 7,600 subscribers on that way to 10K. Let's get right into this because it's going to be a nice long video. And of course, yeah, y'all are going to skip around anyway, but for you guys who do like to stick around, I want to make sure you guys get as much good content in as little time as possible. So, starting off with the number one pick, C.J. Stroud. I think it's the most logical thing. You get Frank Reich with a frame that he's more accustomed with since he hasn't coached a starting quarterback under 6'2". CJ is that ball placement specialist, so it makes sense. And obviously that number two pick is going to be Bryce Young. It's going to be 1-2 CJ Bryce or Bryce CJ. So, it is what it is. We know the top two QBs, and it's a good picks for each team. Next, you got the Cardinals going Will Anderson. Tyree Wilson does make a little bit more sense if you are going to try to run a 4-3. You look at what Gannon's used to having there. He used to have like BG, that one defined big edge rusher. And to me, I think Will Anderson's the better pick. You could have him more in that Hassan role that Gannon had last year. But, technically speaking, does fit a little bit more with Tyree Wilson. I ain't going to scratch anybody up for going after Will Anderson. I love Will Anderson. Pick number 4, AR to the Colts. Incredible talent. He just needs to be refined. And, we saw Jalen Hurts, kind of more of an unrefined prospect, not a polished passer, but more athletic than anything, be able to be molded into something pretty incredible. And, I don't think that's solely Shane Steichen, but I do think that's a lot of the work ethic combined with Steichen's scheme. And I think Anthony Richardson has that work ethic, and he also is then going into a proven system for an athletic quarterback. Next, you got the Seahawks going Tyree Wilson. I think that this is perfectly fine. I know a lot of Seahawks fans absolutely detest this pick, but we'll talk about a guy in a couple picks here. The news broke yesterday after this was posted about Jalen Carter, but it does appear that there are more concerns than what we once expected with him. So technically, if there were none, obviously Jalen Carter would be the number 3 pick. But that's not the case. Tyree Wilson is an incredible prospect. I may have him at number 11 on my big board, right behind Felix Uzama and right near Nolan Smith. That doesn't mean he's not deserving of the 5th overall pick. He's just more of a system fit guy. I want him with someone who's good at developing a raw prospect. I trust Pete Carroll to do that, and this guy is an incredible talent. Even though he is raw, he still put up 50 pressures on the year, and he didn't even finish it off because he had his foot injury. But, incredible talent there. I think 35.5-inch arms, just ridiculous, and it's a big addition to that team, for sure. Lions and going Kancey. I think that this is heavily overrating where Kancey should go. I know that Cynthia has him at 18th overall. PFF has him at 12th. So I'm not going to be one to say that this is a bad pick for the value. In my personal opinion, where I have him on my board, obviously it's an extreme reach. But if you do look at it through their perspective, Detroit Lions could use a defensive interior. There's no trade here because she's saying you could move down, add a couple picks, and still get the guy. With the emergence of the news that Jalen Carter is off certain teams' draft boards, I have a weird feeling Kalijah might be getting this type of a boost. And he's a crazy athlete, and he has that amazing first step. He might have T-Rex arms at 30 inches, but if you're able to close the distance, that does effectively reduce that liability. So I think that defensive interior like Kalijah is great for the Lions. I do. I would just pray to God that Jalen Carter gets his head and ass wired together because he really should be this pick. But, the best ability is availability. And if you're a head ass, then you're probably not going to be as available as someone like Kalijah. Kalijah is going to be a good addition to this team. So, I personally go JPJ. But, again, that is me. I have more of an issue with the second pick, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. Raiders going Jalen Carter. Obviously, the news broke yesterday that they took him off their draft board. Could that be smoke? 100%. 100%. This is smoke season, but there are legitimate concerns. And, when you hear teams taking him off the draft board, it is not like, oh, that's weird. Hearing Will Levis bombing interviews, which we'll talk about in a second, that one might sound like some teams are trying to blow smoke just to be able to have him fall, but we'll talk about that right now. because I don't think this is a bad pick for Atlanta. I'd prefer to go after a corner. I prefer to look at an edge rusher potentially, but the biggest value position is a quarterback. And if you're sitting here at number 8, the question is, do you believe you're going to suck enough to be at 1 or 2 next year? If not, then you're not really going to be getting a super high ceiling prospect like Caleb Williams or Drake May. This might be a better option. You are still sitting at the back end of the top 10, not nearly as valuable as a pick. You have a lot of really good pieces on your team. You have some great weapons there as well. To me, I think this is not a bad pick. And I know it's a very unpopular opinion, but you guys know me. I didn't like Desmond Ridder last year at all. So for me to kind of root for Will Levis over Desmond Ridder doesn't really say much. But I do think that when you want to move the needle, sometimes you got to go after that 20% of positions that make that 80% of the impact. And QB is one of them, and it's one that they definitely need. Bears going Peter Skoronski. I just want to get a true tackle here, but Peter Skoronski is the most reliable offensive lineman in the class. So if you just want to be able to fill one hole for 15 years, this is a great pick. But if you're saying I need to fill a tackle spot for 15 years, I would not look this way. Obviously, I like the idea of Paris Johnson developing him. He's athletic enough, and I think Pierce Skoronski is much more of a surefire deal than Broderick Jones, than like all these guys, Anton Harrison, Darnell Wright, as well as Paris Johnson. But still, it is just so tough with those small arms. He just can't. He never initiates contact. It's going to be tough in the NFL to play a pure tackle role consistently the way he did in college. Eagles then going Lucas Van Ness. I'm just not a fan of Van Ness, but I do understand it is a very realistic pick. You do have great veterans on the team. After 2024, you have one edge rusher signed, and I think after this past year, all you have is Josh Sweat there. So it's definitely a likely pick. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I would prefer for the Eagles to move back, get some draft capital, and then go after someone like this. But again, not out of the realm of possibility at all. Titans going Nolan Smith. I love Nolan Smith. Going to replace that Bud Dupree role. I have him at number 12 on my big board, even with the pectoral tear. I'm just a big fan of Nolan Smith. Houston Texans going Miles Murphy is a perfect pick. I love it. So, yeah, I can't really complain. D'Amico Ryans gets his hand on another large, high upside edge rusher with some incredible NFL IQ. Now we got the Jets going Paris Johnson. This is going to be an ideal situation. Obviously, we were saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to be traded, and news reported that the Packers were trying so hard to be a pain in the ass and get pick 13, but it looks like that is now off the table for them as well, which is a great sign for the Jets. Pick number 14, the Patriots going Devon Witherspoon. I talked about this in Jordan Reed's mock draft, which you guys can check that out. I reviewed 259 picks. Now, that was crazy. But Devon Witherspoon is a great choice. I think that Bill can turn him into a superstar. He is, where is he at on my board? You guys get to see my board right below my face, but to me, it's over to this side. Number 18 on my board, perfectly good range. I'd prefer for him to go on someone with a higher upside and a better frame, like Christian Gonzalez, but I have Devon Witherspoon higher because I think he's a better player. Green Bay Packers then going Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm praying to God they do the right thing and do something like this. It's legitimately perfect. Him and Christian Watson are like a match made in heaven, but I just don't trust the Green Bay Packers to do that. That being said, there's not really many better choices. I like the idea of Brian Branch to this team, but of course he didn't test very well. This team might be looking more for a higher testing athletic safety. Do not be surprised if they move back and select Sidney Brown. That's just a gut feeling of mine. I just feel like Sidney Brown could be a Green Bay Packer. It's a weird gut feeling, but they're known to take a big swing on defensive backs early. And that's just a weird gut feeling I have. It's a weird one. Not realistic, but it is a gut feeling. Commanders then going Christian Gonzalez. Don't exactly think this is the right system for him, but at the same time, you're still taking a high upside player, and the situation in Washington is not solidified. You could end up seeing some new defensive minds being brought into the building over Christian Gonzalez's tenure there. So, yeah, you're kind of taking a long-term investment there. Same thing with Deonte Banks. I love Deonte Banks with a passion, and he's obviously right down the road from Washington. CG is still a great selection. Steelers are going Broderick Jones. I love offensive line pick for the Steelers. I will just say I want Deontay Banks as a Steelers fan now. I really do, because I think this corner class has a select top of the class that could be legitimate corner ones. The rest are kind of vying for that higher level corner two territory. So for me, I kind of want the Steelers to finally have a real corner one and have Pat Pete train someone like Deontay Banks, who still is refining his game. But Broderick Jones is an amazing selection. This is the pick I have an issue with, even though, I mean, I love Dalton Kincaid. He is my number one tight end in the class. I think the Lions could always use extra weapons. For me, I think the needle mover is getting a bigger wide receiver. I think the idea of a pass catcher is excellent. I think that being able to have a big, reliable threat is a great thing to do. But I think James Mitchell, in my personal opinion, can hold it down compared to outside on that X receiver spot. I really miss that DJ Chark. And I know that you won't find somebody with that build this early. But I really want Quentin Johnston at this point. Like, that's where I'm dying for it. I love Dalton Kincaid. Obviously, this sort of second round, I would be fully supporting of it, even though I don't think that's a position I would address. I totally agree that pass catcher is something you should do in round one, now that you haven't addressed that receiver position. Buccaneers then going Anton Harrison. I love it. He has played left tackle for an extensive period of time, as well as played at least one game at right tackle in the past year. So that is nice to get that versatility and experience. Seahawks then going Jordan Addison. You're going to be pretty much replacing D. Eskridge there. Don't think that's a bad pick myself. He had some type of spine issue at the combine, so I feel like he plays a little bit faster than 4.5, but still a great player. I mean, I love Jordan Addison. For me, I know the Seahawks went Tyree Wilson earlier. I would be open to moving back and getting Breezy. I would be technically open to going after a linebacker, but with Bobby Wagner coming into the building, I'd wait till round 2 for that. It's not a bad pick at all. I'm just saying other picks that I would be open to at that point. Chargers didn't go in Michael Mayer. If I am the Chargers, I know that Kellen Moore loves his tight ends. Very realistic pick. I would prefer to go Brian Branch and replace where Nasir Adderley's vacancy is. And, you do have an amazing mentor there in Derwin James, as well as J.C. Jackson when healthy and in the right system. Pick number 22, Quentin Johnston to the Ravens. He did run an unofficial 4.48 to 4.52. I think that's perfectly fine for him. He never really had speed as his dominant trait. He just had enough speed to be able to compete, and that's perfectly fine. I just think that he needs to be a little bit more assertive with his hands, go out and get the ball rather than bring it into you. That's the same note from a Steelers fan to Chase Claypool back when he used to totally screw everything up, but, it's an easy fix. It really is. I think Quentin Johnston could be an elite receiver in the NFL, and after the catch, he is incredible. Vikings doing JPJ. Obviously, you guys see he's my number 2 player in the class. I'll scroll down now because I wanted to save for that. JPJ is incredible on the Vikings with Flores. Ridiculous. So this would probably be my favorite pick in the draft, regardless of what happened, just because I think Joey Porter Jr., especially with a defensive mind like Flores, would be incredible. Next, we got the Jaguars going Deontay Banks. Perfect. I love it. You guys are used to using your corner. I mean, I love the way that you use Tyson Campbell, and that's exactly how I would use Deontay Banks. So putting him into that Shaq Griffin role, I love it. I love it to death. So excellent pick, A++. New York Giants are going Zay Flowers. I do this pick myself. I would rather get a bigger bodied receiver, of course, but it's still another guy who's a needle mover, and it's on a longer term contract, cheap wide receiver contract. Wide receivers are still expensive. So getting someone like Zay Flowers could definitely be a very nice addition to the team, and it gets the ball out of Saquon's hands to keep him healthy too. I love it. Dallas Cowboys then going Bijan Robinson. It's the best pick you can potentially dream for, so I'm not going to disagree with that whatsoever. Bills going Cam Smith. I don't like Cam Smith that much. Obviously, I do think he will end up being a first rounder because he tested much faster than he played. For me, I'm still keeping him far down my board. I thought he was a very boring evaluation. I literally fell asleep while watching him. That is a true story. So, it's just, he's okay. At least he's athletic enough. That's a plus. But I do think other cornerbacks are better in this class. I'd rather go for the offensive line positions because you already know the teams after you are probably going to be going after that offensive line position as well. And this team definitely needs extra help on that O-line. Then the Bengals are going Darnell Wright, exactly the pick I would go for the Bills. So that's an excellent selection for them. Can move to right tackle, and in case of injury, can move to left as well. Saints going BJ Ojolari. I'd prefer going defensive interior here with Brian Breezy, but at the same time, I don't really think this is a bad pick whatsoever. You're keeping BJ Ojolari down there in that Bayou area. I love it. BJ Ojolari, I kept it for this reason as my number 6 player in the draft. Yes, I am insane for that. That's fine. I'm perfectly willing to admit my insanity. So 30, the Eagles going Brian Branch is incredible value. I think that he should have went earlier, but sometimes guys do fall. And Brian Branch is someone who he still has very big slip-ups on tape. So for him not to be athletic enough to make up for it, that is a little bit concerning. So I can understand why he would fall, but I do think that the upside of him potentially fixing those little micro mistakes is, totally worth taking earlier. Next at 31, the Chiefs end off by going Feliciano DK-Uzama, who I am a huge fan of. Obviously, I was telling you guys I have him at number 10 on my big board. I really do love Felix. He's also improved his game year over year. I give a little bit special credit to those players who do work on themselves, because I think that in the long run, that will be more of an asset than maybe instant day one impact. But personally, I would go after offensive line here, develop DeJuan Jones. Just because this edge class, you can develop someone like Isaiah Foskey later on who could play a similar role in the short term. So that's going to be there. Let's continue this mock draft. So have this already fully loaded up. Steelers ended up going after Broderick Jones earlier at pick number 32. I want to see which corners are still on the board. Oh, I love Emmanuel Forbes to death. And we could still take him. I really do love him. Man, I mean, his talent, he was my number 2 corner before weighing 166, but his testing was incredible. So maybe if he puts on 10, 15 pounds instead of a 4.35, he's a 4.4 flat. To me, that's fine. It's him or Breezy, and I do think Breezy would be the wiser option, but I'm going to go after what my heart really wants, and that's for Emmanuel Forbes to be an elite level player. Pick number 33 for the Texans. I'm potentially going Brian Breezy here. I've never had him at this spot, and D'Amico Ryans could totally make Brian Breezy into a superstar. I really do love the potential of that. Other players of note, DeJuan Jones, developing him for a year might be worth even more. And I know you're giving a middle finger to Titus Howard here, but if you're paying a tackle essentially $25 million a year on one side, the other side's going to be at least wanting a significant portion of that. It's a very big cost savings move, and DeJuan is worth it. So we're going to go DeJuan. I could have done that, honestly, for the Steelers as well, but would be a little bit on the insane side. I know Cardinals need offensive line, but you can't pass on the upside of Brian Breezy here. Gannon knows the value of those defensive interiors, and now you have Brian Breezy, and you also have Will Anderson. That's two guys who are like projected top 5, top 10 picks literally a month or two ago. So getting him here at 34, pretty good deal. Pick number 35 for the Colts. Interior offensive line is going to be probably the way that I do go. I think Osiris Torrance he has his flaws, but I do think he has the upside and the size necessary to kind of just plug a hole where needed. Pick number 36 for the Rams. I'm just going to be going Will McDonald all day. You guys know how I do this. Will McDonald, they went after and were willing to spend 2 firsts and a second on a player of a similar size, speed, build. So getting him here in the second definitely lines up with where their priorities are. Pick number 37. So obviously wide receiver, round 1. Edge rusher, round 1. This would have been a great spot for Brian Breezy, like I said before. Mozzie Smith would be excellent here. Adebawore would not be awful, but now you're getting 2 guys who are that 275 plus mold. I know. I still want to potentially go after Jack Campbell here. I'll own up to it. I really am high on Jordan Brooks, like on him having rebound. So I said he was kick-ass. Obviously, he's not been the most consistent, best dude in the world. And having Bobby there is excellent. I do think Jack Campbell is the future, so you could go after that route. Offensive line as well. I could totally see Steve Avila being an excellent choice for this team as well. Mozzie Smith. There's a lot of good guys who can be plug and play. You guys spent a lot of money in free agency on defensive interior. I think that shows where your priorities are at. Steve Avila might be the best choice here, realistically. I think he could be one of those guys who does go earlier than this, and it's time for him to get a re-eval as well. So pick number 38, the Raiders went after Jalen Carter after giving everybody the middle finger, saying he was off their board. Probably is off their board. So I'm actually potentially going to go after AlexCBarbour here because he is somebody who does have, he's a little bit raw. I want him to be trained up a little bit before being able to be sent out there, and I think he'd be a good addition. Jack Campbell might be too good to pass on, though. I think that you get a really strong leader there on that second level, a good commander of the defense. He tested out incredibly well. I'm a huge fan of Jack Campbell. I'd rather take him at 32 to my Steelers than let him see go anywhere else. But, I had to follow my heart one way or another. Pick number 39. I'm going to look at an edge rusher here. I'm hoping Frankie Louvu gets brought back. I'm going to go AlexCBarbour. You can kick him to the inside as well. I know he doesn't fit that smaller, 235 Hassan Reddick role that you'd really love, but, somebody who can be kicked to the inside in a 3-4 or actually play with enough speed on the outside in a 4-3 or as an outside linebacker in that 3-4. That'd be insane. Seeing him come out, even from, if you can technically put him as a, now I'm tripping balls, as from wide 7, that'd be ridiculous. Pick number 40. So B.J. Ojulari was round 1 selection. I'm going Mossy Smith here. I'm not going to play too many games with that. Pick number 41. Nolan Smith was the first round selection. I'm going to look at the offensive line here. I've been going Cody Mauch forever, and I think that's a great selection, but I want to change it up a little bit. I think Josh Downs getting 2 smaller, more athletic players at their position is going to be the way to, change things up. He is incredible and dynamic as an athlete. I could see him going in the first round easily. Pick number 42. I do think this is going to be traded for Aaron Rodgers, but it's not my job to do the trading here. So we're going to do a quick check to see if Cynthia actually talked about the trade in this one, because she talked about Aaron Rodgers with the Broderick Jones pick, and it does not appear that she gave a specific quantity. But you know what? We might as well. Let's do it. Let's trade with the Green Bay Packers, and they're sending Aaron Rodgers essentially for this pick, and then a future. We'll just send it a future too. We'll do the 2-2s, and the Green Bay Packers are selecting at this spot. They ended off going with a wide receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba in round 1, and I said they're going to go Sidney Brown as a safety. They're going to do it right here. I love Sidney Brown. He's a top 32 player on my board. I think he's going to be a very, very, very special talent in the NFL if he goes to the spot that treats him well. Pick number 43. So we already went a tackle. And now you could try to go maybe with a center. I don't think that's the best. That's not the needle mover for me. I'm still going to be going a linebacker here in Trenton Simpson. I think that's going to, I'm not following what PFF says the needs are because sometimes PFF's on crack, but I do believe that linebacker is going to be the position where you get a good amount of movement from. Pick number 44, the Falcons went after Will Levis in round 1. Very intriguing. I don't think it's a bad pick whatsoever. To me, it's down to edge rusher as well as corner. And looking at the top guys, I love Tyreek Stevenson, learning from Cam Hayward and AJ Terrell for a year. I think that'll be your best payoff. And looking at the rest, I think that is an excellent move. So Tyreek Stevenson is the option for me. Packers are back, and there's going to be no more trades. No Moss. I'm going to be going Darnell Washington here because he fits that Mercedes Lewis role extremely well. Patriots. So I think this one could be Cody Mauch. That would not be an awful option in my eyes. He doesn't really play tackle very well, and I don't think that one of the guard roles is necessarily the biggest position to target. I would say you could also go linebacker, and I'm actually going to do that with Drew Sanders because I truly believe that he could be a special talent. Linebacker is a position I would go after for the Patriots for sure, and Drew Sanders has that upside also, is a former buddy of Bill Belichick, Nick Saban's athlete. So love that for Drew Sanders. Pick number 47 for Washington. Went after Christian Gonzalez in the first. I'm going to be going after interior offensive line here with John Michael Schmitz. Not going to think about that too much. Pick number 48 for the Lions We went after a tight end and defensive interior. So to me, I mean, I personally wouldn't go after a tight end because, again, right here, now you could, if you're really wanting to, you could go like Sam Laporta. But it's a tough spot. It is, because I don't think Michael Wilson, A.T. Perry, or Rashee Rice are worth this selection. Just you can't really get enough value out of it. I don't think the linebackers are necessarily good enough. Diane Henley probably is going to be the guy who I might opt with. Like, it kind of sucks in this spot specifically because I just don't really trust most of these guys. I'm going to go with Garrett Williams, though. I do want to get a developmental corner, and you have Emmanuel Mosley for a year. Garrett Williams is still recovering from an ACL tear and is a top 15 talent in the class when healthy. Pick number 49 for the Steelers. We went corner. We went tackle. Now I think that you could look at Diane Henley to move in. Landon Roberts as well as Cole Holcomb are commanding our defense. I think that's fine. Antonio Johnson could be a nice addition to replace Terrell Edmonds as well. But I'm pretty sure we just signed a safety. So I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal. Other positions of note, again, defensive interior. I think I'm going to actually go with Keanu Benton here. Having him like line up and be in 1 year understudy to, I'm forgetting his name, Larry Ogunjobi would be a great choice. Pick number 50 for the Buccaneers. Obviously went after Anton Harrison round 1. Now, I think Luke Musgrave would be a great choice. It's just a high upside pick, and getting more receiving weapons for Baker Mayfield, never a bad thing. So, the Dolphins, right tackle would be great. Don't really see that. But I'm actually going to get the versatility of Cody Mauch to potentially move to one of those spots. I just like the value a little bit too much. The Seahawks are sitting here, and I think I went after, did I go offensive line for him? I went Steve Avila earlier. So that's fine. It's Diane Henley. You could keep him there in the Washington State area. Obviously not out there in East Washington because that's literally in the middle of BFE. But you could go after a defensive interior here. I just don't think the value is good enough. I think you could go and develop Diane Henley for a year. He'd be a good complement to Jordan Brooks as well. Pick number 53 for the Bears. Bears went a tackle / guard / center prospect. I think now you could potentially go after another tackle. I don't think the value's good enough. I love Eli Ricks. He might have some issues in terms of what people think of him. Keely Ringo's a potential safety transfer, but I'm going to be willing to bet on him as a cornerback too. And, it's a risky one, but it's one that's worth taking because if it hits, you got yourself a superstar. Not many people are in that 4.3 range at that 210, 6'2" platform. So, yeah, no, he could be truly special. It's just a lower chance of it than maybe what we would like. So the Chargers, I'm going to have somebody who could potentially move to safety here, Clark Phillips. I really do like him because he can play a true corner role as well, but he's probably going to be that slot safety that Nasir Adderley should have been and I think he could play that free. I really do think he could play free where Nasir Adderley was. So Clark Phillips could be a super big steal here, keeping him in that Pac-12 area. Pick number 55 for the Lions. We went after Garrett Williams earlier. Now I might want to get a developmental offensive lineman. I know we just brought in Glasgow to be a backup, but Luke Whippler might just be too good of a value to pass on. And looking at the other receivers, I just can't really get behind. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs would be kind of like your cheaper version of DeAndre Swift. Your team is loaded, so it is what it is. I'm going to go Luke Whippler to develop for a year and kick Hal Vaitais' ass out of there. Keep Glasgow as well as an amazing backup. Pick number 56. Luke Whippler would have been a great selection for this team for sure. But we went a boundary corner. I don't really think this team needs much. So I'm actually going to get Joe Tippmann and keep him as a reserve for guard or center. So he'll be a guard, but when the need comes up for center, we'll go that way. I've become a lot higher on Joe Tippmann than than what I was. And, I think this is a fairly solid spot for him to go. The Giants, I'm going to be going a corner for him. I will. And it's going to be Eli Ricks. I think his potential with the hands of Wink Martindale, I think that would be really awesome to see. The Cowboys went after a running back named Bijan in round number 1. I still think they could go a developmental corner. I think Julius Brents has the highest upside besides, Jalen Jones is incredible, but he lacks the athleticism for me versus Julius Brents, who obviously in K-State, he's been around here quite a bit. He tested out of his mind. Even though the 40 was a little bit slow, everything else was awesome, and he has an incredible frame too. Pick number 59 for the Bills. I think there's not many other offensive linemen available. That's my fault because there probably will be come draft day. Just that's the way I take my offensive line. Wide receiver could be a route that they do go. And I think Tank Dell would be a fun option for this team to deploy in some way, shape, or form. I hope he doesn't get absolutely shattered like a Minecraft skeleton there over in the cold, but fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, because Tank Dell is an amazing separator, even though he ran a 4.5. Pick number 60. I think that this is a great spot for Antonio Johnson, and I'm going to continue hammering him home here. Pick number 61 for the Bears. What do we do for the Bears? We went Keely Ringo and then also Peter Skoronski. Now, you could go a tight end for a longer-term option here in Sam Laporta. I know that contract is coming up for Cole Kmet. You could go Jahmyr Gibbs here as well, and I think that's a great choice. I know that the value of running back is, they don't see him as highly, but sometimes BPA is BPA. The Eagles. So, round number 1. I'm tripping on what y'all... Oh, we got Brian Branch as well as Lucas Van Ness. Solid options, for sure. Solid options. Now, other positions you could try to address: defensive interior, always there. And you have pretty much the majority of them back for one-year deals. Nobody's worth it. Remotely. So, let's kick that idea to the curb. Safety already addressed. I think you could look at the corners here and develop one. And looking at the guys who are available, I think DJ Turner is worth taking because he can play actually a very similar role to Chauncey in my eyes, but you already have that role with Brian Branch. I think DJ Turner at that 4.27 speed is a great understudy. I love DJ Turner. Where do I have him on my board? So for me, I have him at number 67. This is an excellent spot to be able to nab a player like DJ and have him sit for a couple of years. Then ending off with the Chiefs, we went after an edge rusher in Felix, and now I just wish that better offensive tackles existed in this class. I really do. I'm actually going to go after Sam Laporta, star tight end to learn under the 34-year-old Travis Kelce. So that is going to be the video. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you on the far side.